Thank you, Angelique. The Arizona Attorney General is now taking steps to restore millions of dollars the state took away from law enforcement agencies following a N4T Tucson investigation. Now, the impacted funds were meant to help crime-fighting efforts, but were instead seized to help balance the state budget.
Our N4T Tucson's chief investigative reporter, Corus Nylander, is live outside the Pima County Sheriff's Department with more on how the funds are being replenished. Corus.
Yeah, well, Monica, the N4T Tucson investigators were first to break this story just before the 4th of July. Dozens of law enforcement agencies in Arizona, including the Pima County Sheriff's Department here, were outraged when they learned that their RICO funds were being gutted by the state with little to no notice. I have now obtained this letter from the Arizona Attorney General's office explaining the steps they are taking to return all of that money.
I think this just shows a real failure of government.
That's how Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb felt after learning just before the 4th of July that most of his department's anti-racketeering funds were seized by the state.
This is money we use for training. This is money we use when we're actually doing drug busts and drug stings.
It's really a tale of two letters. The N4T Tucson investigators were first to expose the shocking issue impacting 32 departments across the state, including the Pima County Sheriff's Department and Tucson Police Department. It all began with a June 24th letter from Attorney General Chris Mays, where she said she had no choice but to take $10 million from the funds across departments to satisfy the needs of the governor and legislature's approved budget. This led to a response from Governor Katie Hobbs calling the AG's actions illegal and without all the facts.
This was really all unavoidable if there had been better communication from our partners at the state.
Pima County Sheriff Chris Nano says his department was shocked to lose their funding. By the time they were informed by the Attorney General, the money was already gone.
Some of us were given the information thinking we had a day's notice, and actually the funds had already been swept that day. It's concerning when your partners fail to communicate. And sometimes things happen, you get a short notice, and we understand that. But in this case, it was clear that in talking with the Attorney General, that they had known of these potential sweeps as far back as January.
After continued finger-pointing between the governor and Attorney General, the N4T Tucson investigators obtained this letter dated July 12th from the AG's office to impacted departments, indicating all the money has now been returned and will now be funded through the Federal American Rescue Plan. Governor Hobbs also sent a letter saying, quote, "This infusion of funding ensures the participating law enforcement entities that you lead and represent can access needed resources regardless of overall funding levels. The ISA we executed with the Attorney General's office authorizes the Attorney General to immediately transfer the full $10 million into the ARRF.
Basically, we've got our money back. So I'm glad for that. Communication is key, and I think it was lacking in this instance.
And Sheriff Nano seemed confident that this is the end of this problem. When I spoke with Sheriff Lamb, though, he feels very differently. He told me he worries in the future they could take the whole RICO funds or impact their budgets in different ways. This has caused him to further lose faith in state leadership. We're live from the Pima County Sheriff's Department tonight. Corus Nylander, N4T Tucson.
Thank you, Corus, and you can